The Fantasy Footballer Studio is sponsored by Walmart. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Oh. It's August. It's time. We're here. We made it. August 1st, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Thrilled to have you join us as we count down to the beginning of the NFL season 2025 approaches. We are 5 days a week.
Football has already started.
Yeah, what else
last
is there?
night.
Yeah, what a game, too.
Woo!
Just a Hall of Fame game, I'd say.
Yeah. Glad everyone came out unscathed.
So
what are you doing?
Jason.
What are you doing? We're recording this early.
I
Jason, what are you
know.
doing?
We're recording Thursday afternoon before the game takes
You
place.
realize who's playing tonight or yesterday.
Yes, I do. And they're,
These are not people that you want to throw that out.
Nah, we're going to be given a solid 80%, a drive or two. We're safe here.
Okay.
Oh my
well, they've already seen what happened.
Well, yeah. Or
Stop talking about it.
Or whoopsie doodles.
But we have so much to cover. We're getting into our rankings episodes, the top 10 tight end rankings on today's show. We'll count it down. We've got NFL news to catch you up on. We got a great quick question. We also want to remind you as the NFL season, as the fantasy season kicks off, if you have a league, which, look, we recommend that. It's the easiest way to play
I'm
fantasy
guessing you do.
football. You need a trophy or you need some swag. You need some gear. Every league's got a trophy. Maybe you want a championship ring. You want a belt for the champ, some other accessories for your league. We always start off the fantasy season reminding you about fantasychamps.com. We have a special code. It is BALLERS. If you go to fantasychamps.com,
Ballers.
you can get 10% off anything over there. So get your league trophy now. Have it ready for your draft. If you're the champ, buy yourself a ring or 10 and put them on your fingers and bring them to the draft.
Mm-hmm. You could put the belt on or you could put it over your shoulder. I like over the shoulder. And if you want one of the physical draft boards that you put the names up on for a live draft, they got them there as well.
They do have those, yeah. So fantasychamps.com, use that code BALLERS. We've got the Ultimate Draft Kit available to you at ultimatedraftkit.com. So the Value Scout tool launching momentarily, which will give you the ability to compare what we consider a player's true value to be, which is, based on their draft position, and then you can compare that with all the different platforms that your league mates play on. So they see average draft position lists in Sleeper and Yahoo and NFL and ESPN, and a lot of players draft kind of subconsciously, even if they say they don't. When you see that ADP list, sometimes you feel a pressure to take players in certain spots. That's why we want to give you an advantage, a way to exploit and take advantage of that with the Value Scout tool, another part of the 2025 Ultimate Draft Kit. Here's your quick question of the day. Let's get into it. How much do you guys consider and factor in strength of schedule in your rankings?
Not much. When it comes to the actual rankings, I do factor it in from last year to this year and the gap, kind of the delta between did they have a really easy schedule last year and now they're going to a really hard one, or a really hard one last year and they're going to a really easy one? Kyron Williams is somebody that's going from a very difficult schedule last season for running backs to an easier schedule this year. Ironically, the previous year he went from an easy schedule to a hard one. You saw the efficiency dip. But for the most part, when I'm doing rankings, I'm looking at the season. I don't believe we know a lot about how these defenses are actually going to perform in 2025 because they're always so wildly different.
That's the thing that people need to understand, is that when you look at the strength of the schedule for what they had last year, that's all settled. Like, we know how good those defenses were. That is a real number. The strength of schedule moving forward is 100% projected. Doesn't factor in the mysterious injuries that are going to take place, all the turnover on defense, the changes of coordinators.
So like the Lions, for example, got devastated by injuries, including an injury to, their pass rusher, Aiden Hutchinson. It's like that's factored into the numbers of That's who they were last year, so that's
Right.
what they are in the projected strength
So
of
they
schedule.
look like a better matchup than they might actually be for
Correct.
opponents. So
The Dolphins were difficult to throw on last year. For wide receivers, a bad matchup. They've lost like their entire secondary.
Yeah,
I don't
they
think they have
are
a single
they're in
player
trouble.
from last year's secondary on there. So you've got to have some projections. I will say, not so much when I make rankings, but when I am drafting, and we've got the strength of schedule tool in the Ultimate Draft Kit. If you just pull that up, go to myudk.com, and you can go to the strength of schedule tool. I like looking at the first 3 weeks. I know that we might be wrong about whether
I agree. I use that too.
but I look for the extremes. And I definitely use it on my defenses. Like when I'm picking my defense, like I love Baltimore's defense. I love the Bills' defense. They're great. You know who plays each other week 1? Buffalo and Baltimore. Like, do you really want to start week 1 playing against either of those offenses? Not really.
right, like you might avoid Buffalo and Baltimore
Exactly.
in your draft just because you know, oh cool, I got a great defense, but then in week 1 you throw them out there and you're disappointed because both offenses are going to score. I will say, like, just as a kind of sidebar of the same question, you really want to, and we'll tell you this throughout the season if you're with us, but you really want to start paying attention to strength of schedule data, 4, 5, 6 weeks into the season with an eye on the playoffs, the fantasy playoffs that is, because you're going to understand which teams are actually improved on the defensive side, look like really good matchups, are weak against certain positions. Like, we've had, I think famously a couple of years ago, Derrick Henry had this beautiful, playoff schedule.
Oh,
I think it
yes.
was Tennessee versus Houston all the time, and he played Houston twice in the playoffs.
Yes.
Something like that. But it becomes very, very important to the way we look at our week-to-week rankings as the season progresses, not a heavy emphasis on the way we look at projecting individual players because there is so much turnover.
I have 2 early season takeaways though that I will just float to you guys, see if you care. Currently,
Cleveland has a tough time.
yes. Currently going into this season, the number 1 easiest strength of schedule for running backs
For how many weeks?
for the first 3 weeks. First 3 weeks is New Orleans, Carolina, and the Niners, which is the Arizona Cardinals and James Conner. So you've got old man Conner, who you don't know how long before he breaks down, but at the very beginning of the season when he's healthy, that's like a pretty nice opening schedule.
Sure.
Getting off to a hot start after your draft is so important. Like when you start 3-0 versus 0-3, the way you manage your team is just so different. I feel like every time I start
controlled and not like you freaking out.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's true. And then the other one that I'm a little bit scared of on the reverse. This is a passing offense I want. I find myself taking them. Everyone, I talked to Jeremy yesterday. He got this stack in the mock draft. I thought when I went in with the 5th pick, my plan was CeeDee Lamb at 5, Dak late. But the opening schedule for Dallas's passing, listen to this. They start on the road against Philly. That's going to be not a fun time.
No.
Not easy, at least. Then the Giants, which the Giants as a team are not good, but their defense is good.
Yeah.
Then on the road in Chicago, very difficult. They were actually the 32nd worst matchup for quarterbacks last year. Then Green Bay, who is good. Then the Jets, great defense.
Yeah. I told you I don't like Dallas. I like the idea of Dallas. I like the history of Dallas. And George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, maybe Dak, they can all get it done. But that's an interesting one to figure out. Let's talk some news.
News and notes from around the league, presented by Progressive Insurance.
All right, Juwan Jennings missed his 3rd consecutive practice on Thursday due to a calf strain. That is an aggravation of the same thing that bothered him in the offseason, Kyle Shanahan said. So he did have
It's a little troubling.
So, yeah, I mean, the Juwan Jennings, like for me to be really excited about Juwan Jennings, I want like a bunch of things to be aligned.
Like
right?
both calves
No.
good?
No. Well, yes, both good calves. Yes, that's one of my check marks. Also, just like, Ricky Pearsall, he's getting healthier, getting back into it. We know Brandon Ayuk's probably not going to be there for a while. They just signed a pile of depth players there.
That means there's one answer. His name is Christian McCaffrey.
Okay. Yeah. Because a big workload. That's what he needs to stay healthy.
It definitely is.
So he needs to stay healthy. Groinindex.com update. Juwan Jennings, who had left practice with a groin injury.
Juwan Johnson.
The
fact that we have a Juwan Jennings into a Juwan Johnson.
That's on our team.
That's pretty intense.
On our team. They can't trust me to get that right. That's on somebody out there. Juwan Johnson left with the groin injury, but is already back at practice, so he's going to be okay.
That's right. That's because he's a man.
Yeah, a man, but probably not one you draft.
No,
he could be. He's a nasty boy.
Yeah, you probably don't draft. Yes. Let me hit the button. He's not someone you draft, but I'm paying attention to Juwan Johnson. He has a history of a little bit of fantasy success in his past, like a lot of touchdowns. They just gave him the money. And then looking at the roster of, like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, just I would leave a little open place in your heart for Juwan Johnson.
Noah, you've always had a place in your heart for him. Noah Fant expected to sign a 1-year deal with the Bengals. He had visited a couple other teams. I think we know what Noah Fant is at this point. It is, he joins Mike Gesicki, Eric All Jr., Tanner Hudson, who gets snaps.
Do you think it makes any potential of the Mike Gesicki auto start should meet Higgins miss time?
I think it does hurt.
That up
yes,
a bit?
I do.
For sure. You're not going to draft Noah Fant. Now you're not going to draft Mike Gesicki even lower.
Gesicki wasn't a draft. He was just pick up and play.
On the pick up and play, I won't do that. I think that they'll eat into each other. I mean, it's good for Joe Burrow. It's good for the offense, and it's great. I mean, I love the Bengals constantly giving more money to their offensive players and letting Trey Hendrickson. Do not sign Trey Hendrickson, please. Please let us have a terrible defense.
No, see, here's the thing: you can get past the point of no return. Like their defense was already the worst of the worst with him. You can get to a point where
it's just,
you circle all the way around to where it just like
your offense can't do anything.
If they score on one play, do you know how tired the offense is going to be? But yeah, maybe you're right. Amir Abdullah. The Abdullah Express himself.
Choo.
Signed by the 49ers. He still can play football. I mean, he's a good third down back. Latavius Murray apparently just retired from the NFL.
We're announcing this.
I guess this is in here because I think Kyle remembered the famous, like when you were like, I love
Latavius Murray.
But yeah, he is officially retiring. It's always interesting when the guy officially retires 4 years after you thought he retired.
That's not 4. He had 4 starts for the Buffalo Bills in 2023.
Well, that blows my mind.
According to Pro Football Reference.
2023?
Yeah.
The year before last, he was playing football?
Yeah.
Starts?
I do remember that,
16
actually.
games and 4 starts.
That's still
I mean, 79 for 300 on the year.
So. I mean, I still would have retired last year, but, you do you.
I think that's it by way of news. That was News and Notes sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers not available in all states or situations. Coverage subject to policy terms, limits, and conditions. Into our tight end rankings we go.
Tight ends.
All right. The tight end position, always pretty interesting. And we get to count down our top 10 rankings. This is our consensus rankings. You can see all of the tight ends, all of our tiered rankings, custom to your scoring system, printable cheat sheets. Everything in the is in the mobile app and on the website for the Ultimate Draft Kit. But one thing that we should talk about is just philosophically, how do we look at the tight end position, the investment you make in fantasy? The tight end and the quarterback. Unless you're in a super flex league, those are the onesie positions, right? So you always, if you spend a draft pick on a high draft capital tight end or quarterback, it's at the expense of another valuable position.
You have an opportunity cost.
So one thing that, Kyle pulled up for us data-wise was the hit rate for tight ends since 2019. So if you draft a tight end, the 1, 2, 3, like the top 3 tight ends off the board, 50% of the time they've been finishing as a top 5 tight end on the year. But if you include the first 6, like the first 6 tight ends off the board over the last 5-6 years, it's an 80% hit rate that they finish inside the top 5. So it is a high probability that if you do invest in one that you're going to get a decent return,
Yes.
But there is a cost, right?
Yeah, there is definitely a cost. And then, we talk about the way our draft strategy is. You either invest in the position early or just bail out and just wait. Hopefully you find the diamond of the year. There's not a lot of them, but it's also a position that you can realistically you can stream it, find guys to give you just a couple games here or there.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had Jonnu Smith and Brock Bowers that were not, they both finished in the top 5. They were not high draft picks. The year before we had Sam LaPorta, so the story there, a couple of rookies in a row. Dalton Schultz was undrafted in 2021. He ended up with the big year with Dallas. Robert Tonyan, back in 2020, was an undrafted tight end that ends up being a waiver wire pickup.
Man. The Robert Tonyan year of what did he have, like 30 receptions and a
ton of
touchdowns per reception?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what your guys' approach is this year, but let's talk through these names. Tell me if these guys are, because obviously we're going top 10. We're going outside that top 6.
We're going top 10, and I think just notable to mention here, I guess I'm revealing some of the time, but the rookies are not in our top 10. They are just outside.
As in we didn't rank them there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like in our consensus rankings, they did not make it high enough. Some of them, like Jason and I are more in on Loveland. Andy right now is out, and I've moved both of them up to talk about guys who aren't in the show, but they're fringe. They're just outside.
I think it's important before we get into the top 10 to say, like, the projections that we have, those are kind of those median outcome projections, and that doesn't necessarily. That's why we have the upside meter in the UDK, so you can look and just say, okay, this guy might be ranked 2 spots later, and you go, okay, but his upside meter is really, really high. It's just, those type of players, when you're late drafting tight ends, you want to swing for the fences. You want to have Mark Andrews' breakout year because, or Brock Bowers, surprise rookie season for being as good as it was versus a piddly poop tight end 6th season. Because, we were talking about, like, okay, the tight ends drafted early, they finish in the top 6. But it's also true that usually, almost every year, the top 2 tight ends matter, sometimes 3. And then when you're tight end 5, when you finish at tight end 5, you did not move the needle. You did not matter. You were not consistent. You scored more fantasy points than the 6th best tight end, but it didn't really make a difference.
Well, I mean, one thing we've done a lot in the past few years, you can look at Chiga Okonkwo last year. You look at tight end matchups, you talk about strength of schedule. Yeah. You look at what teams struggle against tight ends, and if you're not holding one of those top 3, 4, 5 tight ends, you're certainly playing matchups with players that have opportunities against bad defenses, because the defenses, what they're doing against tight ends, it shows up seemingly week in and week out. Some teams just don't concentrate on stopping that spot.
They say, go ahead, run your offense through the tight end. Because
we don't care.
And we do not care. Yes, I think that's a great point of usually there's about two to three teams where you're like, I know that I'm going to be playing my tight end against that defense. Jason, just to highlight it a bit more. So last year, Mark Andrews, tight end 5 on the year.
Right, tight end 5.
Hopefully we do not forget,
season.
But saying 9.5 points per game for Mark Andrews. Travis Kelce, the next, 9.2. LaPorta is at 9. Zach Ertz was at 8.5. Like, these guys are all, you're talking 5 to 10.
What was the gap between Ertz and Andrews?
1 point.
Yeah, so, I mean, that tells you a lot.
Like, they're all, the whole
It's
top 10,
huge,
they're just, it's a cluster of guys who are
that also
really
means if you
close
spent
together.
a top 5 selection, because it's not a guarantee, if you spend a super high draft pick and you get those numbers,
It's a bummer.
that's a bummer.
Super.
Number 10.
Tucker Kraft comes in at number 10 on our rankings, just 24 years old. Mike and I love him.
Yes.
Jason, not
Jason's
an
a
I.
hater.
Just Jason. He has a much lower, I think, I'll speak for Mike, but I think we both like what we saw on the field in terms of just explosiveness from Tucker Kraft. This is a passing game where, look, I love Jordan Love this year, but part of the Jordan Love argument is like, hey, maybe we aren't going to be able to figure out week to week which guy puts up the biggest numbers. But that's okay for Jordan Love. They've got a lot of talent there. He was the tight end 9 last year on the back of 707. He wasn't the tight end people were expecting to break out and have a big impact, right? Luke Musgrave was what everybody
expected.
expected.
He was the chosen one, yeah.
Second-round tight end. Turned into Tucker Kraft in a lot of impressive plays. He averaged 8.8 yards after the catch. That was 2 yards higher than any other tight end. So that was part of his storyline. It's one of the things I think people hope Colston Loveland can do with his kind of athletic makeup. But, really, really big plays for him last year. He had 17 plays of 15 or more yards on 70 targets. That is a high proportion.
Yeah, and just to flesh that out a bit, you have, Travis Kelce he also had 17 receptions of 15 yards. It took 133 targets to get there. Our beloved Trey McBride, he had 21, so he had more plays of 15 yards, but it took 147 targets. The thing with Tucker Kraft is it's a projection, but looking, who they have. Romeo Doubs, he is who he is. Jaden Reed seems like he is who he is. Christian Watson is not a factor for this team to begin, and then you're just like, is Matthew Golden – I know he's a first-round pick. Is he ready? Is he ready to be one of their top options from week one? Tucker Kraft is so fascinating to me because of the yards after catch, a chance of increased volume here as they're shuffling their pieces around, and he is late. And then on top of that, doing my ADP studies, which admittedly the sample size is not gigantic, but per ADP, tight ends who break out in year 2, drafting them in year 3, they are the best statistical bet in ADP. So like when I'm either I take one of the early guys or I'm going with the rookies because they could be a boat. But the rookies ADP is all over the place, where we'll have some mocks where they will go extremely late. You'll have mocks or real drafts. They'll go early because people are trying to jump in on the trend. If I'm not early, Tucker Kraft becomes a focal point.
Is that who you ended up
draft.
with yesterday? Or
I went Loveland. I had Loveland or Tucker Kraft, and I took Loveland in that one just because where I see the ceiling case for Tucker Kraft, it's like some really good spike weeks, but I finish at capping out at 6 or 5 or something. Where with the way the NFL has been going in the draft capital of those two rookies, it is no longer wild to think that those guys can finish in the top 3.
When Jordan Love came back from injury, because if you remember, he got hurt, missed two games. When he came back, Tucker Kraft had 5 weeks where he finished 4 of them inside the top 10, 1 at number 2, 1 at number 1. Again, part of this is the film. Part of this is just liking what I see from him and thinking that if Jordan Love threw 35 touchdowns.
And that's very possible.
Because that's very possible. I mean, he was the quarterback 2 years ago with 32 touchdowns. If he threw 35, I think you're going to get a very plus season from Tucker Kraft.
Agreed.
I believe that the team is so committed to him. Everything that I've seen, they love what he brings to the table. So this far down, what's his ADP right now?
Let me double check it.
He's the 12th tight end off the board in the 10th round. I don't mind. So I've got him ranked as my tight end 19. I'm obviously not as hot and bothered as you guys are. Mm-hmm. When I look at the film, I don't see a bad player, but what I did see was a lot of incredible. I mean, the scheming was great. He had a couple, like a 66-yard wide open. He's just like anybody could have done it, but also he's in that system. And so there's a lot of things to watch for. So you can argue that both ways. Like he had a couple big, gigantic plays.
He had a catch of 66 yards and a catch of 67
Yeah, and
yards.
that doesn't happen for tight ends very often. But those 2 plays, they weren't him breaking tackles and manimaling people, in some kind of amazing yards after the catch. It was like, oh, the whole defense and offense was on the right, and they forgot about Kraft. Musgrave, remember, he was supposed to be the guy, and now we're like, oh, Musgrave's stupid. But Musgrave got injured all last year.
We said he was stupid.
No, I'm saying that's how like it fantasy. The fantasy
we're
community,
moving on.
The depth chart has changed.
The fantasy community is acting like Musgrave is irrelevant, but he missed the whole season.
But he also he started the year. He played in the first 4 weeks, and the transformation, like week 1, 25% of the snaps, week 2, 44, and then 56. Meanwhile, Tucker Kraft is a full-time player.
Yeah,
and that hasn't changed in camp. That hasn't changed with the way the team is building the offense.
Reading it.
If you want to buy into Kraft, he's 24 years old. That's great. He's athletic. That's good, and he's on a great offense. So I don't have any problem going after him. But to me, I see not arrow necessarily up because you draft Matthew Golden. Last year you had Dobbs and Christian Watson, missing games. You had Musgrave miss the majority of the season. So they needed Kraft a little bit more than I think they need him this year. But obviously great offense, young tight end, broke out last year a little bit. I'm okay with it. But there are just other guys like the 2 rookies I would rather have than Kraft.
It's not that drastically different to me, situation of the Mark Andrews of Hayden Hurst was the first-round pick of the Baltimore Ravens. Then they took Mark Andrews, and that's to say they went with Musgrave and then Tucker Kraft, and I think they figured out that Kraft is the receiver.
Well, but Hayden Hurst was a ginger, so that's you know what I mean.
Like
that's
so Hayden Hurst is a good player.
Luke Musgrave's stupid. Hayden Hurst is ginger.
Jason is
maybe leave.
You need to go back to sleep and wake up again.
Jason did say he was pretty tired when he rolled in here. Goodness gracious.
By
the way,
tell me a lie.
By the way,
our fine redheaded friends.
I'll just start out there. When Tucker Kraft scored a 66-yard touchdown, he straight up stiff-armed one of the opponents and ran over another one.
He put 2 guys into the ground.
He was almost a my guy. Like he was on my board as a my guy earlier this offseason. So obviously we're going to be really bullish about him in this argument today. But it's a lot of good pass catchers there. They dealt with a lot of injuries last year, and there's a reason he's sitting at 10. So we'll take a break and we'll jump right back in. All right, I'm looking at the rankings on these guys, the individual rankings on our next guy, and I'm a little shocked.
Number 9.
Mark Andrews comes in at number 9, a long-time staple on this episode. Not normally even this low in the rankings, but Jason and I have him right at the edge of the top 10. Mike has him buried at 15.
Yeah.
Even after this Isaiah Likely news, which I did make some tweaks. I think you said that too, Jay.
Yes,
so did I.
You moved him up to 15.
I did.
So this is, I think that's really interesting because Mike has always been in. Mike and Mark go way back.
Well, Jason, I equate Mark Andrews as Jason's guy, but I do.
You know what? Maybe I'm thinking of you drafting him over
McBride,
Trey McBride last year.
Yeah. Yep, that would be it.
Oh man,
I already had Marvin Harrison, by the way. Those people because out of
you want the people to know.
Well, I just out of context that for
sounds real bad.
For the way I talk about Trey McBride, that sounds horrifically bad.
You did already have Marvin Harrison. That is true, and I bet you wish you had 2 Cardinals.
Oh, very much so. My year would have gone a lot different.
So Mark Andrews' year last year was really, you want to use stupid. This is a good opportunity. It was a stupid year. It started out as bad as it gets. His targets, they have been going down. Opportunities, catches per game, and yet he salvaged all of it.
Mark Andrews
with touchdowns.
Was one of the best waiver wire pickups last year. That's actually true because he was pretty darn good.
I'm having to zoom in on the screen to see these points. 2.4, 0, and 0 for 3 of the first 4 games.
Yeah. After that, you had a stretch run where he was extremely consistent. Last year, he finishes the tight end 5. You remember how bad it was to start the season. Back-to-back gooses. The world was over after a week 1 collapse. It was like Mark Andrews was just completely evaporated from fantasy football. He will never be relevant again. And then he went on the rest of the season and had an awesome fantasy season. The issue that we have, and it is true, is almost all of it, and it's so much. The vast majority came from touchdowns, which are not a sticky stat. He had his own career high.
Was it 11?
11, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the next highest tight end last year had 8. And so you just go, oh, well, he is a touchdown machine, and you expect Lamar to throw a lot of touchdowns, so that's great. There's a good place for Mark Andrews. He doesn't cost as much this year. However, you have to assume it's going to regress. He didn't even have 900 receiving yards. Every touchdown with 10-plus touchdowns and fewer than 900 receiving yards, they all have massive regression the next year.
That you go with 900. You could have gone with 800. You could have gone with 700.
That's true. But the statistic of regression.
The second he said that, I'm like, what? I started looking up his yardage number because I was like, did he get to almost 800?
There's, I think, a couple things to remember with Mark Andrews is, he was, when last season started, he was coming off of breaking his ankle. He had he was the victim of a hip drop tackle, busted his leg. He got in a car wreck right before the season started. So those are, we look at these guys as superheroes and that they can do anything, and injuries are nothing. They bounce right back. So that maybe that was far more of a factor than we wanted to give credit to. My biggest issue with Mark Andrews is dude, it's vibes. Like the way that they were talking about him the whole offseason of essentially like, well, he
was a threat to be gone on
he's
draft
on the
day.
team right now. Like it was so bizarre. The whispers in the bushes of an Isaiah Likely extension coming up, which has not happened, and Likely is of course hurt. So
and Harbaugh talking about how he expects Likely to be an all-pro this year.
So for me, honestly, it wasn't that I was trying to trash Mark Andrews, and I'm not elevating Isaiah Likely. It was, I think that what the most likely existence of these two tight ends is one will have a good game here, one will have a good game here, and you're never really happy with either of them. Now, if Likely misses time at the beginning of the year, then Mark Andrews will be sensational in all of those games because he will play all the snaps and he will be just dominating the middle of the field.
He was 20th in the NFL in targets at the tight end position. 20th.
Yeah,
he was 14th in receptions. So it was touchdowns. It was, and he'd done that once before, where he had a big, low total reception, high touchdown season, right? Like he did it in 2019. He had 64 catches, but had 10 touchdowns, and that vaulted him up there. Look, it's just a lack of confidence in. It's going to be one of those rides every single week when Andrews is in there where you're like, I hope he scores.
Would it change your draft day decision if it seemed like, we're at the draft, it's, a week or two from football, and it looks like Likely's probably going to miss the first 2 or 3 weeks?
I was going to say, if you give me 3 weeks.
Because I feel like that would change my
decision. I would certainly still go late.
I would take the shot then, because what if there is some, what if you can get it going a little bit more on the target count? The problem is they just have – it's a different team than when he was at his best for them, right?
Yeah.
They just gave Bateman a big contract. You mentioned Likely. They're predicated on, Derrick Henry's a big motor in this offense. They have a good defense. They have Zay Flowers. They have DeAndre Hopkins they added this offseason. So he's just not as necessary as he once was.
And
he's older. He's going to be 30.
My final point for him is just how efficient he was, where last year he had 15 targets in the red zone. He had 11 red zone touchdowns. Like that is
all of his touchdowns were red zone.
Yeah, but I'm saying
he should act like 2-point conversions are for touchdowns.
Easy. But like the year before, 14 targets.
Oh man,
yeah, did you catch up there?
Yeah.
So 15
not efficient on 2-point conversions.
15 targets turned into 11 touchdowns. The year before that, 14 targets turned into 6. The year before that, 18 turned into 5. Like maybe it's the Derrick Henry effect of like the defense has to be so worried about that the efficiency went through the roof, but there's so many markers to be nervous about Mark Andrews.
Number 8.
All right, we talked about him quite a bit on the last episode. Evan Engram was on the Unsolved Mysteries episode. He is older than Mark Andrews, and he comes in at 8 on our rankings, 8, 9, and 9 when you look at where we have them individually ranked. So we talked a lot about Evan Engram. The big story here, he's going to be a great target for Bo Nix. Well, that, not a huge per catch kind of guy, but a very good PPR option. I took him in a full PPR draft.
That
I like
full
him a lot.
PPR makes
I like
sense.
him a lot more there.
Yeah, that was the one thing I don't think we brought up well talking about Engram on that episode was that it does make a difference to me if you're in a full PPR because his inefficiency, his sub 10 yards per catch, it's not going to move the needle. But if you're getting a full point for every reception, he should be getting 5-6 receptions a game. And as a tight end where he's going later in drafts, I do think I would, because I'm not really in on Evan Engram, I would 100% pull the trigger full PPR.
I think we all got to the point where like the cost just has to be better for Engram.
He's sort of the most opposite of Mark Andrews a player can be.
Right.
And with the touchdowns and receptions. I mean, it's nice to see Camp Buzz that he was the favorite target of Bo Nix right when they put the pads on. That's awesome to see. But
5+ receptions a game last year. So it's PPR goodness. And this probably won't change things for you guys, but I did see a quote today. A player said he's going to be perfect in the Joker role for Sean Payton. The person who gave that quote, Adam Troutman. So if Adam Trautman's given the stamp of approval,
See,
it's good.
I'll be honest. I thought maybe the head coach was saying that, and now
No,
that would have made me.
You should have. I don't know if you followed along with the Sean Payton running back expose today. Every running back on that team is doing awesome.
Well,
literally every running back.
Find somebody that'll work you into a podcast like Mike works Adam Trautman into a podcast.
Yes.
Because that means
Find that
that's
person.
true love.
That's true love.
Number 7.
David Njoku, who is our number 7 tight end. I got him at 6. These guys at 7. He is going into year 9 as a 29-year-old. And still every bit the physical force that he's always been. He proved, last year or in 2023 and last year that he can be a focal point of an offense. You look at the kind of fantasy football winning season he had in 2023. He was the tight end on my championship team that year. He was better on a points per game basis last year, just missed time due to injuries. It's nice to see because there's a roulette at quarterback that happened all last year, and it's going to happen again this year most likely, and he was still a dominant force.
He's my second favorite target in all of fantasy for tight ends. Right now he is darn near a double-digit pick because of the injuries last year, because of some of the question marks at quarterback, but it's not like he's been playing with great quarterback play. And like you said, Andy, he was better this last year than the year he brought you a championship. On a points-per-game basis, David Njoku was the tight end 4 last year. It went George Kittle, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Njoku. And Njoku cost you jack squat. Go ahead and load up on running backs, load up on wide receivers, and then take David Njoku late, and he's just as good as any of these other guys.
Do you have to watch the Browns game?
No, you don't have to watch. The points happen. Like the platforms now,
Okay.
they actually automatically put the points in.
And you don't have to watch to
You don't
get
have to watch.
credit for it?
So even what if the word comes out like, hey, Kenny Pickett, he's our starter. You would still be that gung-ho?
I am still gung-ho. I don't think he is completely dependent. Obviously, if Jameis was there, I would prefer it to be Flacco. I think those things would slightly elevate Njoku, but I believe that his role in the offense is secure and established by the last 2 years. So I think he's going to be necessary for the offensive system, whoever the quarterback is.
His physicality does get him banged up. That would be the only other thing that I want to throw out there. He's been hurt quite a bit over the years, but he is definitely, as a 9th-round pick, somebody that you can look at with top 5 upside if things work out, and I would love it with Flacco. I think
that's everything for me. We get the word that Joe Flacco
he gets close to the painted area. That's what he can do.
But it doesn't matter.
But it does matter to me
No,
because
but
he wasn't great in the Watson games last year. He was terrible in them the year before.
I guess it matters in the sense that if we assume they're keeping both rookies that they drafted on the roster, then probably Pickett or Flacco aren't on the roster, in which case it would matter if Flacco wasn't on the roster. But my point is, one quarterback is not playing 17 games for the Cleveland Browns.
I just want touchdowns was my point. I think Joe Flacco is the most capable of throwing him a pass in the painted spot.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Kenny Pickett did not. I think Kenny Pickett literally set all-time records of not doing that in Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Is the only reason I'm in love with the Flacco upside of Njoku.
Which as far as I have seen, that is the route we are trending. We just don't know for sure that it's going to happen.
Yeah, 55% of the time, good games last year. 18% great, 27% bust games.
Just Jameis Winston. When we have David Njoku here, he had a week with 17 targets.
Oh,
Jameis had an interview the other day.
A tight end over the course of 3 weeks would be stoked to have 17 targets.
Did you guys see this Jameis interview where they were talking about whether the NFL humbled him? Did either of you catch this?
No, I didn't see that.
I'm telling you, he gave either the dumbest or the most intelligent answer in the history of football, and
it's a thin line,
and I can't tell the difference.
I'm pretty sure I know which one it was.
It was like every bit of Jameis, like this long-winded answer about the NFL not humbling him because he didn't have, his dream growing up was just to be in the NFL. It was not to win a Super Bowl. It was like once you get there, that was the end of your dreams. I didn't dream big enough. Like if I had dreamed bigger, dreamed to win the Super Bowl, but you just can't take him seriously. You look at him talking seriously, and we've got Deucer's Alley over here. We got one guy over there in the corner, and you can see it right now. This dude, the Falcon can't go 5 minutes without smirking. That's how Jameis talks.
Yeah.
If that guy right there, if the Falcon started saying something important to me,
Oh,
you
you can't
believe in
believe
that?
Oh,
it. No.
you can't believe what he
No.
says with a giant
You
smile
imagine
on
if he
your
was
face.
a judge in a courtroom?
Oh,
You can't be
Handing
smirking.
down a verdict.
Yeah.
You're guilty with a giant smile on
With
his
a
face.
big
Like,
old
wait.
smirk.
Wait. Are you joking right now?
Yeah, Jameis is the and that's what he is on the football field, which is hilarious. As a quarterback, he is the dumbest and smartest at the same time. All right, we'll move on.
Number 6.
Very interesting name. Sam LaPorta comes in at number 6. We all have him. Well, Jason's the highest at number 5. Mike at 6. I'm at 7. I think I said something a couple shows ago or off the air about just like I just don't see a world where Sam LaPorta is not a really important part of this offense.
I've been rising.
I mean, we have to understand the emotions of fantasy, and when you come off a number 1 overall season as a rookie, you put up an outlier touchdown number, and then you come back and lo and behold, you're number 7. That's it was a tough start to the year. It got going late, but it was the worst first impression.
That was like where I think I had been, grasping on to what had happened with Sam LaPorta a little too long. The rookie year was sensational, and then his ADP was out of control. Like he felt like the easiest do not draft player of 2024 of taking a player who did what he did on the targets in the second round. Is like
very obvious.
Do not do this. Do not do it. And then for the whole, through week 9, he gave you a couple good games. So it was a complete slam dunk victory for the show of saying do not draft him. But then the second half of the year, it was way, way better. And I mean, to the point of 14 points, 8, 14, 12, 15 in the championship weekend. So the question about LaPorta is not is he a good player? It's was that caused by the Detroit Lions defense falling off in the second half, and all of a sudden now they have to put up way more points?
Look, they were an amazing offense. I think what it just comes down to is that his price is not – there's no real steal here happening with Sam LaPorta. I think he's going to be a crucial part of the offense. Like if you look at when it mattered last year, weeks 11 through 17, he's the tight end 5, right? Like he's outperforming the Mark Andrews run at the end of the year, David Njoku. He was that good, better than Kelce. Problem is he's being drafted as the tight end 4 right now in the 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in part because a lot of the old heads, like people are letting those guys fly by, Andrews and Kelce, and LaPorta is still exciting on a really good offense. But, I just think from a value perspective, it's not there. From a performance perspective, I think it will be there. I think he'll be around 10 fantasy points a game. So if he slipped, if I could get Sam LaPorta in the late 6th round, I'm all over it.
Yeah, I mean, I am the highest of the three of us statistically on Sam LaPorta. Draft strategy-wise, I'm probably the lowest of the three of us on Sam LaPorta. And in fact, I'm not going to bring up too much now because we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about him on Monday's episode. A little tease.
That is that's a professional tease.
You want to tease it further? Is it going to be good stuff or bad stuff?
Well, it'll be cold.
It'll be on Tuesday.
Jay. A little freezing.
Tuesday.
Well, then on Monday I can tease it again, Mike. You don't understand how deep I tease.
Number 5.
Travis Kelce is number 5, Mike.
Yeah.
And he is 60 years old, or 60.1. No, he is almost 36, though. That's wild. That's too close to my age. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just too close to my age. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means he shouldn't be playing.
I think it means you should be playing
I should
football.
be playing or should have been able to play. But this is quite the run. And what's even more crazy right now is that I think I'm kind of becoming more into first half of the season Travis Kelce because, Rashee Rice.
Which we still don't have word on that.
About Rashee Rice. Yeah, we don't have the suspension figured out. Hollywood Brown banged up again. Xavier Worthy will be fine. He has a concussion. But you just look at the offense and everything coming out about Travis Kelce is that he's in much better shape. He definitely lost quickness last year. You can say what you want about the disappointing season. He was still better than Sam LaPorta on a per-game basis over the course of the year. ended up at tight end 6, but guess what? He's being drafted there now. Now he's a mid-7th round pick.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new discussion.
So how? Because he got a big bump when we're assuming that Rice will get a suspension and a decent one, but here we are. At least at the time of this recording, we've not heard anything about it, and it's still just an assumption that it's going to happen. I guess the question then becomes, what is your Kelce outlook should the Rice suspension not happen?
The Rice suspension will happen. I think we need to approach it as it will happen. However, if it wasn't, Rice to me makes all the difference to Travis Kelce because they're in the same exact area of the field. They're the same first read type of target that they often go to in that system. You look at the first 3 weeks when Rashee Rice demanded all those targets last year. Travis Kelce comes out, scores 4.9 points as the tight end 14. Next week, 1 fantasy point.
Yeah, because Rice has the juice.
The next week, 5 fantasy points. And then Rashee Rice gets injured. Right after that, Travis Kelce's the tight end 5, the tight end 7, the tight end 4, the tight end 2, the tight end 1 on a weekly basis. It was oh, okay, because that's where Patrick Mahomes throws the ball to. So I do believe that Rashee Rice will be suspended to start the year. It's not happened yet. I'm not the commissioner, so maybe it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
But
6-7 games seems like it's
an inevitability.
I'm
not going to disagree with that, but it's because that's the whole conversation to me. When Rice when it seemed like the suspension was getting pushed to next year, Travis Kelce was off of my draft board. So let's say
that's why I think it's better to presume.
Right, but what if it doesn't happen until week?
Then everything
4.
Then everything we said before our show about Rice will just be the true stuff.
Okay.
But right now it's not that situation.
I'm saying, are you drafting Travis Kelce?
I am willing to draft Travis Kelce.
Let's say our league of record
I would
draft
tomorrow.
Of course, yeah, tomorrow.
Okay, that's
yeah.
I'm drafting with
the larger
confidence that Rashee Rice will be suspended this season. Even if it happens to be week 4 before the suspension comes. I think where Travis Kelce is being drafted in the 7th round it doesn't sound like much of a difference. You go, oh, the 5th round, the 7th round. It's not about what round number. It's about who are the players and where are those tier breaks at running back and wide receiver. And the difference between who you're still able to get in the 5th and who you're able to get in the 7th is monumental. So I will take Travis Kelce in the 7th and enjoy a first-half run, and then I will trade him after a month or two.
It's very weird to have him at this spot in fantasy drafts. So, yeah, if he slips there, if he's in round 7, that works for me. And I think it could work really, really well. There's a world where if Rashee Rice, which he should be suspended, and no Hollywood Brown, Kelce could end up the tight end 1 after the first 5 weeks.
How many targets do you think Travis Kelce was on pace for weeks 4 through 17? Basically the weeks where Rashee Rice wasn't there.
It had to be over 110.
158.
Yeah, this is how they roll now. They don't throw it down the field.
Yeah.
And if he's in a lot better shape,
He's not.
This
he's
is best shape of his life.
I don't care
period.
about that narrative, but
you don't think it worked out with Luka?
I don't think that you get in the best shape of your life at 36 versus 35 when you are a professional
he
athlete.
Definitely looked too heavy last year.
So you think maybe it was a Swiftie problem? He let himself go a little bit?
Just you win 2 Super Bowls, you have a few brewskis. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you get your behind whooped in the Super Bowl,
and it changes.
You start making some different
he is a
decisions.
competitive dude,
especially when you're after that Super Bowl. It's, hey, Travis, are you retiring? You're maybe. I feel like if you're not going to retire, you better get in. You better make this the last run.
It's a chip on his shoulder season.
Do you think
that's real narrative-y? But
just genuine question: do you think he's motivated to be better this year because we're higher in sports podcasts than his podcast now? Because last year, Travis Kelce, the Kelces were beating us in the rankings. Not this year. Not this year.
You cannot control this man right now.
More like
Jason
it's just the truth. I'm just saying the truth.
You talk about old heights.
Get
wrecked, Kelce's. I ain't scared of you. Kind of scared of your mom, but I'm not scared of you too.
Full disclosure, I am scared of you. But I'm just saying he's more motivated now. That's all. He's motivated for this season.
Seems like an amazing,
he's a competitive guy.
Amazing time for an ad break. We'll be back with our top 4. Back into the tight end rankings.
Number 4.
Do we remember how good this guy was? TJ Hockenson comes in at number 4. we're giving him the respect in the rankings, and he is being drafted as the tight end 5 in the late 5th as of right now. You know, Minnesota, we're talking about J.J. McCarthy. We're talking about this offense. And T.J. Hockenson, you know, he came back last year, limited snap counts. Definitely didn't look like the player he was the previous 3-4 years. But I think we know what's there when you can have enough time to recover and how important he could be to this offense. You're going into the season just to lay the foundation. Addison likely to miss 2 or 3 games to start the year as a result of the DUI settlement.
Whoa.
No. It was
What,
a
reckless?
DUI settlement, which was settled as it's still a DUI.
Is it? I thought
mean,
the whole
you
point
still
is,
do. I mean, he still.
Well, I know what
I
he
almost
did.
said performed.
No.
He performed a DUI.
No,
It's still a DUI.
I don't think
I didn't
it,
know.
that was what
You
he
were
was
pulled
arrested
over and
for.
yes, you
But
can
he
be
pled guilty to
being wet reckless.
Being wet reckless, yeah.
Was he driving under the influence, Jason?
We'll
Yeah.
never know.
Okay. He's gonna. This is not the point. He's gonna miss time. Jefferson's got the hammy. First part of the year, Hockenson should be a great best buddy to a young quarterback in McCarthy. Didn't score a touchdown last year after returning. Do you throw most of last year's performance out? And it seems like you do with your ranking.
Yeah, Hockenson is a very valuable player, especially to a young quarterback. You know, the only downside to Hockenson to me is I do think he fits kind of that Evan Engram role where it's at this point in his career, coming off the injury, you're not going to be necessarily going super far downfield, 14, 15 yards of reception or anything like that. So I don't know what he was last year. So I guess he was at 11. Man, Evan Engram sucks. But, the issue is
He did what he was asked to do.
you're still – I would have asked him to break a few more tackles. But if you don't want that, you don't want that.
Oh, my gosh.
The issue is just where you draft him. He's that comfort blanket that not only for J.J. McCarthy but for the fantasy football drafter. Like when those top guys are gone and you're like, ooh, I still want someone good. You end up with LaPorta and Hockenson, those in some order.
You still have to spend a decent price,
and that's the issue.
But there's a risk that comes with Hockenson and just the fact that, last year, I mean, to be fair to him, he only played about 60% of snaps. His career, he's been an 80% snap guy at least. But, you have to expect him to be back in form, have a rapport with the young quarterback. These are things we don't know for sure. And that's part of the risk with the selection. It is nice that he's cheaper than where LaPorta is right now.
Mm-hmm. But which
So
offense
if
do
you
you
had-
trust more? Like I think we're all bullish on the Vikings, but the
Detroit,
risk for that is
Detroit.
He
He ended up going. Hockenson went 7-11 in our mock yesterday.
Oh, that's a great.
but that
pick.
was also a full 3 wide situation there. I'd expect him to drop a little bit. Kelce at 7-12 in yesterday's mock draft. So I guess the question is, do you just believe that Hockenson is going to be super important to the offense? I tend to think he will be.
I tend to think that too. That's where my median projections ended up. But he makes me a little nervous. He feels like he's sitting right in that middle tier tight end who you're like, okay, I feel good. I got a guy I can just leave in there every single week. I don't have to go stream, and you're just going to get disappointed over and over and over.
He's played 7 games when Jefferson missed time in the last couple of years, and he was outrageous in those games. So, like,
That makes sense.
If you don't have Addison, like those first 3 weeks, or anybody goes down, like he went up to like almost 10 targets a game, 76 yards a game, super valuable. But it is you're still paying a price, and you're choosing him over Teteroa McMillan or George Pickens or even Pacheco in that round. Like, you do have to pay quite the price for somebody you're not 100 on.
Tight ends are much less about the player than about the positional strategy. Like, to me, that's what you sacrifice where you take these guys. It means more than
I don't
who
think you
get.
like Hockenson 2 rounds more than Njoku.
No, absolutely
So that's
not.
really what it comes down to.
I mean, the last 17 games rolling that Hockenson played in, so that's no injury. It's pre-injury for half of that. He's still a consistency ranking of a C. And if you're sacrificing a George Pickens at a position you need multiple of to grab him, like I like Hawk, I like LaPorta, but strategy-wise, it doesn't make sense to take those guys.
I had to look, Jason, because you're making so much fun of Evan Engram and his forcing missed tackles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so thankful for you, Mike.
PFF has him charted at 5, which is
5 missed tackles?
5 forced missed tackles,
Okay,
which
that's
is
not as high as I was hoping you'd say.
It's
after I
the
was on your
same
side.
as Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, but this is relevant to our discussion earlier.
Ertz?
Because Ertz is lower than that.
Okay.
No, tied for number 1 on that list,
Kraft?
Tucker
All right.
Kraft.
All right. Okay.
Not a manimal, apparently.
Yeah.
Just
what do you
tied.
want? What else do you want to see? You want to see him eat people on the field?
I would love that.
15 forced missed tackles.
Tucker Kraft. I'm telling you,
Tucker Kraft.
you can unroll
beast.
everything you said about him if you want, because he is a monster.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Jason's right. We did it. We convinced him to move Kraft up.
I think that stat did the number 1 tackle breaker. All right, let's move on to the big boys.
Number 3.
George Kittle. I mean, if there was ever a George that should just be one name only, this should be the guy that gets it, not Pickens. But George Kittle,
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the best bargain at the tight end position.
Yes.
4th round, you'll have to spin the Bowers McBride.
If he stays in the 4th, he's probably the best. It seems like the best value pick of the entire draft, like position agnostic.
Yeah, I said that Njoku was my second favorite tight end target. Kittle is absolutely my favorite target because there is a genuine difference between a guy who can finish as the number 1 tight end points per game, which is what he did last year, and he's even more necessary to that offense this year, and just got a gargantuan bag of money. Like he is 100% along with Brock Bowers and Trey McBride as difference makers, weekly guys that are going to help you win your – not just like Hockenson or LaPorta where it's okay, it's him and Han. It's like this guy went out and won me a week because he's a center point of their offense, not just a good tight end, that's their second or third or fourth option. And he doesn't cost you what the other guys cost.
His ADP is depressed because he's almost 32 years old. But when you look at 38
It's
games,
really sad.
when you look at 38 games played with Brock Purdy, 6 catches a game, 67 yards, 0.61 touchdowns, and guess what? Where you're drafting him, if you want to pull the trigger on George Kittle, the guys and the names around him in drafts right now are people with question marks. They could be great. They could be a boat. Kittle is a boat. You already know he's a boat.
Oh, this is
like
this
Devontae
man
Adams.
is a yacht.
You want to take Kittle or Devontae Adams? Like, you can take Devontae Adams. That's fine. But you don't. Like, the certainty that comes with Kittle is better than Devontae Adams. Alvin Kamara, maybe on the worst offense in football. That could be a really good pick there. You know Kittle's a good pick there. Amari and Hampton, same story. He could be awesome. It's just you're entering a tier in the 4th round where you're like, I think this guy's great, right? But Kittle's great, and that's I think what differentiates him.
Well, and you've seen in times where a wide receiver goes down for the Niners, and Kittle's that much more important. And now you look at where they're entering this year. Earlier
They're
in this
starting
episode,
at 0.
Yeah, earlier this episode, you talked about it's Christian McCaffrey is the big beneficiary. He will be a beneficiary, but I think the biggest beneficiary in the passing game is George Kittle. You've got Jawan Jennings and an unknown Ricky Pearsall that hopefully takes a step forward. Brandon Ayuk is not going to be there to start the year.
Debo's gone.
Debo is gone. They need George Kittle.
Mike, where do you think Kittle rises in terms of production when McCaffrey finally goes down?
No, it's not impossible. It's not possible.
Not impossible.
It's not impossible.
That's what you were saying.
That's the Freudian slip.
So.
The whole discussion on George Kittle is the value, though. So where does the value break, and it's no longer really exciting? Like, let's say it's
front half of the 3rd.
Okay, so
front half of the 3rd. Anything
got to be back half of
anything
3rd.
305 and beyond.
Okay, I
is my
agree with
take,
that.
my opinion.
Because it's like if you're taking George
Kyle
Kittle,
got him at 309 yesterday in our mock.
If you're taking Kittle at like 302, as opposed, and a few picks earlier than that was Trey McBride, then just value-wise, that feels like you have kind of blown up the whole thing.
All right, we have 2 names I kind of want to talk about together, but
Number 2.
Trey McBride comes in at number 2. We all have him at either 2 or 3 in our rankings right now. 25 years old, unbelievable season. almost 200 fantasy points.
Highest target share among tight ends.
Yeah, 12.1 fantasy points per game. Absolutely dominant despite not scoring a pile of Mark Andrews touchdowns. I mean, that was kind of the running gag over the course of the whole year. I think he had he had a rushing fumble recovery touchdown. Yep. Like they could not connect in the end zone. And it became one of those things where like the odds of connecting went lower and lower and lower because the pressure to get him a touchdown went up and up and up. And I think having that just clean slate this offseason is going to make a big difference. The price for Trey McBride now is a second-round draft pick. Are you going to be happy?
It's expensive.
This is Kyron Williams, JSN, Lamar Jackson, Chase Brown. That's where those guys are going.
It is. It's nerve-wracking, I think, because the advantage that some of those other second-round guys can give you, where I think Trey McBride will be a top 3 tight end. Like that is what should happen. It's just how big of a point gap is he giving you over like George Kittle or whoever's at number 4. That's where at the end of the year you'll find out. And I don't know. I don't know if it'll end up being worth it compared to those other players.
Yeah, that's the big question with the big 2 guys.
But when you draft him, you have a great player that's just going to be locked into your tight end position. And if you if you can figure out the other spots, then it's totally worth it.
I thought you had stopped talking.
There's really nothing else to say about these guys. They're really good.
Number 1.
Brock Bowers.
The thing about Trey McBride.
Brock Bowers comes in at number 1 for all of us. It's going to be a really, really sweet year for Brock Bowers. There's no question about his performance on the field. He gets himself a real quarterback.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous production last year. He also struggled with getting into the end zone to the degree that he's probably capable of. What is the discussion to be had here? I mean, obviously, taking him, it's him instead of Drake London, him instead of Bucky Irving, him instead of A.J. Brown, him instead of Josh Jacobs. You might still be just a really happy person once you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Brock Bowers is going to let you down. I don't think Trey McBride is going to let you down. That doesn't mean you're not sacrificing something. You're sacrificing a really important running back or wide receiver to get those players. The reason Brock Bowers goes ahead of Trey McBride is because Brock Bowers was a clear-cut generational prospect. He came in 2 years ago. We were talking about Brock Bowers before he was eligible to come to the NFL. We don't talk about, like, even when Kyle Pitts was coming out and he was supposed to be great, that was just that season. Brock Bowers, from his freshman year on, was this unbelievable talent in college. You know, he is the reason that Ladd McConkey never had a breakout age at Georgia because he soaked up all the targets, all the receptions. Like, he was the dominator there at tight end. And so the hope when you draft Brock Bowers is that what his rookie season was, which he finished number 1, is nothing compared to what he can do. Because, you know, he scored 12 fantasy points per game. There's years where Gronk or Kelce, they're up there scoring 15 fantasy points per game. And that's really, when you're drafting him in the second, you're going to be okay if he does what he did last year, but it's not necessarily the best fantasy pick. What you're really hoping for, that I don't think McBride can necessarily do, that I do think Brock Bowers could do, is elevate into lapping the field.
I don't know, as we wrap this situation up, all this countdown, tight end countdown up, if you guys have sleeper tight ends on your mind, I want to throw out one name that I think will be a meaningful, productive tight end instantly.
Is it a strange name?
No, it is Mason Taylor of the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Who is firmly entrenched as a rookie atop the depth chart in New York on a team that really – look,
they don't know who the number 2 wide receiver is.
They do. It's Josh Reynolds, and that is why Mason Taylor is an amazing potential breakout candidate. I like the talent. So I think Mason Taylor starting, you know, I like Tyler Warren too. I think Tyler Warren could be outstanding. I do think you have a quarterback swap there. Colston Loveland could get heavily involved. I think Colston Loveland's going to be more hit and miss, but his hits are going to be really cool situations, cool games, cool plays. Cool? I don't know why I kept saying that.
Whatever.
Colston.
It's all cool, man.
Do you have other late round sleepers?
Yeah, I would say that this is an exceptional rookie tight end draft class, and with what we've seen in the NFL, I would pay attention to all of them. Not necessarily who you draft, but if someone pops off week 1, if Elijah Arroyo, who has the opportunity now that Noah Fant is gone, if Terrence Ferguson, who was a very highly drafted, Sean McVay knows how to get him in.
The Seahawks and Terrence Ferguson, the Rams.
Yeah, so I would pay attention to all the rookies. Obviously, Warren and Loveland. Very high first-round draft picks. Those guys will be drafted in your draft class. The only other tight end I would say you got to know his name is Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange is the Evan Engram role that honestly anyone could do.
Oh my gosh.
From last year's Dolphins. So the way
Jaguars.
Yes,
the Jaguars.
It's a new offensive system though.
Yeah, but he is already in camp being talked about as like the clear. He is the tight end one. He's and there's a lot of vacated targets. So I think in a PPR league, that's just a name that won't be drafted that you might want to pick up early and stream.
All right, a reminder, you can see all of our rankings, including those sleepers, breakouts, busts, and values in the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com. We've got quarterback and wide receiver ranking shows coming up. We got Ice and Fire episode coming up, another mock draft on the horizon, and looking forward to all of it. 5 days a week. Click that follow button. Click subscribe over on YouTube. Stay with us for the entire season, Foot Clan, because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.